Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about my journey pursuing the CISSP, and hopefully you'll get a few nuggets that you can take away in your CISSP journey. Let's go ahead and get into this. So if you're just starting out in your career, or maybe you've been doing IT for any number of years, IT, cybersecurity, something like that, you may have taken the time to do a Google search and figure out what type of cybersecurity certifications are out there and should you pursue any of them. Now, during that search, you may have stumbled across like top 10 cybersecurity certifications, and in there, you more than likely have seen the CISSP sit in that pool. The CISSP is the Certified Information System Security Professional Certification. It's a mouthful to say, so people usually say CISSP or CISSP, kind of depends on where you're from and how you like to pronounce it. I prefer CISSP, but others say CISSP. Regardless, it is the Certified Information System Security Professional, and it is the cybersecurity management certification to get if you are looking to be that manager of cybersecurity for an organization, for the government, what have you. There's even people that take this certification, they get it, and then they become consultants and like virtual CISOs or something like that, right? So they can offer benefits to other organizations, they can offer their services because they have the credentials that says that they understand how to manage cybersecurity and design security controls and policies and all that fun stuff for organizations. So regardless to say, the CISSP is a pretty big deal once you've got it. Now, the reason why is because it's not an easy certification to get. I've got to say, is probably one of the most, if not the most difficult certification I have ever obtained, or the exam is the most difficult one that I have ever taken, I should say. The reason why is because they use something called computerized adaptive testing, the CAT testing method. And I don't know if anybody else uses the CAT testing method. I know for all the certifications in cybersecurity that I've taken, all the ones that I've obtained, and even in like just general IT certifications, I've never taken one that's quite like this. And this is how it goes. It's very, very dumbed down the way I'm about to explain it, but this is it. It's very simplified. When you sit for the CISSP, first of all, you are going to have a computer in front of you that you're going to be taking your exam on. And while you're testing, they're going to, get you through the process. You're going to have to, sign your name and read the rules and make sure you acknowledge the ethics, the code of ethics for ISC², the governing organization that wrote the CISSP. But once you've done that, you're going to be given your first question. Once you answer that question, you move on to the next question, just like any other exam. The difference here is that you cannot go back. You cannot go back to the first question. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's not that surprising. Some exams do that. You can't go back. Fine. Here's the thing. With the CISSP, you have your first question, which is generally going to be a very easy question. As you get the questions right, the exam progressively gets more difficult, and it's going to analyze the way that you're answering the questions and how many you got right versus how many you got wrong. And apparently there's an algorithm behind the scenes that nobody really knows a lot about except for the people at ISC², the people who wrote the exam. So it's very secret. When you get the answers correct, it's going to throw more questions at you, and then it may switch it up. So with the CISSP, there's 8 different domains. These are domains of knowledge, things that you're going to be tested on. These are high-level subjects, right? You're going to receive a set of questions from a domain, and once you've answered all the questions from said domain, they may give you another pool of questions from another domain. And so you go through this process, and the minimum amount of questions that you'll be given, that's if you're in a passing range, is between 100 to 150 questions. You're given 3 hours to take this exam. And if you're absolutely bombing the exam, if you're going to fail, and the computerized adaptive testing algorithm will detect that, what they're going to do is they're going to fail you before you even hit 100 questions. That's not to say that they won't fail you after, but you know that you failed if you get a screen during your exam at question 75 or something that says, Sorry, we're going to go ahead and, thank you for taking your exam. Your exam is now complete. Go to the front desk and receive your score. And you'll receive a printed piece of paper that likely will say, sorry, you failed. Better luck next time, or something like that. So you know that that's a good threshold. But if you're hitting that threshold of 100 questions, you know that you're doing well. And if you continue on, you may have a chance of actually passing the exam. Now, some people that hit question 100, they actually pass the certification exam. The exam says, you have completed your exam. Please go to the front desk and receive your report. And there have been lots of people that have been on Reddit and Facebook and all these groups online that have actually reported that they completed their exam at question 100 and they were good to go. Now, I want to share with you my story and the process that I went through to prepare for the CISSP and what it was like actually taking it without, of course, breaking any of the rules and all the privacy rules that I had to sign in order to become a CISSP member. So here's the deal. The Certified Information Systems Security Professional certification is a big certification. There's a lot that goes into it. I actually have the study guide right here. It is a fat book, and I have 2 of them. That's because that's what it required. That's what I had to go through in order for me to feel confident and understanding the 8 different domains that were on the CISSP exam. Now, you have a lot of things to learn about. You have risk management, you have policies and governance and compliance. You're going to have security fundamentals that you're going to have to know about. You're going to have to know about cryptography and system security and application security and cloud security. It's very, very vast, the scope of questions that you could be asked in your exam. And there's no telling exactly what the weighting is going to be in your exam, which one is going to be more focused on. I feel like personally with my exam, the one exam that I took, it was a little bit more geared towards the system security engineering and application security and architecture. So I was a little bit more favored, or I should say favorable to my exam. I felt like I was very fortunate to get that batch of questions versus another batch of questions that may have been based on risk management or governance, risk, and compliance, which is an area that I'm not so familiar with. I've worked in those environments, but it's not my forte. So in that sense, I'm very grateful. If that's not your forte and maybe you do something else, leave a comment down in the section below. Let me know what it is. There's a good chance that you may actually receive that batch if you are looking to pursue the certification exam. Hopefully you'll get a set of questions in your exam that may be a little bit more focused on your specialty. But anyways, I digress. The point is that I'm trying to make is that the CISSP takes a lot of effort to go through. Like I said, I have 2 of those books that I had to study and learn and just really sink myself into. You may have to do the same thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my study routine. So when I was preparing for the CISSP, I had a couple life changes going on, right? I had just started a new job. My wife was pregnant with her 3rd child. Lots of personal reasons why the CISSP probably wasn't the best thing to go for at the time, but I'm kind of crazy in that sense, and I wanted to go for it anyways. And I knew that it was going to be life-changing for me and my family. The CISSP salaries, I mean, they go up, right? You know that if you're a CISSP member, you should be making a 6-figure salary. And fortunately, I think I already had broken that just barely. I think I was making close to like 100, 120 or something like that. So I was already breaking that threshold, but I knew that with the CISSP, it just locked it down for me. And sure enough, it did. When I had it, I was receiving offers way above what I was already making. So it confirmed that, the CISSP is definitely worth your time and you're going to be able to secure high salaries with that certification. Now, the journey that I had to take in order to obtain this was nothing like the Security Plus, which I passed the Security Plus exam within like 24 or 28 days or something like that. I did it in like 3 weeks. The CISSP, it took me 6 weeks to go through this, and I was studying like a mad person. With the Security Plus, I think I was studying like, I don't know, 4 hours here at night, 5 hours there, not that big of a deal, maybe a few hours, maybe I'd skip a day. Like it was okay. It was a lightweight certification exam. The CISSP, 6 hours a day during work days, 8 to 10 hours a day at night. I went through my notes to double check to see what my study schedule was like. It was insane. I had a study schedule. I mean, that right there says something. If you have a study schedule and you're trying to meet that study schedule guideline or that deadline, the goal that you set for yourself, I mean, that right there just says it's a big deal. So, anyways, I had to study 6 hours a day during my work days. And what did that look like? I woke up early, would study about 2 to 3 hours before work, go to work, try to cram in a few study sessions if I could during some downtime. And then after work, I would put in another 3 4 hours or whatever it was until I basically crashed. Rinse and repeat every single day. On the weekends, man, there was no video games, no TV shows, no hanging out with friends, nothing like that. I basically didn't have friends. I've kind of threw out the idea during this session, during this study time, because I wanted to make sure that my energy, I was basically like living, eating, breathing, sleeping CISSP. Just because you can lose your placement, right? It's so easy to get lost and forget some of the things that you learned. I mean, I was during this book, let's look at the size of this book again. It's huge, right? So I would start from the beginning and I would work my way to the end, and I was always concerned, like, as I'm progressing through this and the subject is changing so much, how am I going to retain the information that I learned previously, like in week one or a few days ago? How do I know that I didn't forget that, right? So what I did was the first 4 weeks of studying for the CISSP, I just read through the book. I wanted to get through this massive book. I wrote a ton of notes. I bought these huge college ruled binder yellow notebooks or whatever, the big ones, 8.5 by 11 notebooks, and I would just write my notes. And I think I filled up like 2 or 3 of those bad boys. So I would fill that thing up with notes as detailed as I possibly could. One thing that I was actually finding is that sometimes there weren't enough details about a particular topic or a technology or something like that inside this official study guide. I'd have to go on Google, I would go on YouTube, I'd find videos, I'd go and find courses, whatever I could whatever resource I could find, I would use it to supplement the knowledge that I was trying to obtain, that I was pulling from this book, so that I could write more detailed notes on it. I did that for 4 weeks. And then what I did was I started to practice. I wanted to actually practice for this marathon of a certification exam and prepare myself for this CAT type testing methodology. So I did some research. I found a couple, vendors that make practice exams for the CISSP, but the one that really stood out to me that I kept hearing was a really good provider was this provider called Boston. Now, if you've been, studying for Cisco certifications or Microsoft certifications, you may have heard of Boston. They have a couple simulation exam environments where they actually teach others like the CCNA and other certifications too. Well, they have one for the CISSP. And while I don't think it's actually a CAT certification exam, I'm pretty sure it's just your standard linear exam method, the exam questions are very, very similar. And we didn't actually talk about that. The exam questions for all ISC Square certifications have this way of asking you a question and all the answers tend to be correct. It's just your job to figure out which one's the most correct, which makes things even more stressful as you're taking your exam. So that's a whole nother topic in itself. With the Boston questions, the Boston practice exam questions, I found that a lot of those answers could be correct depending on how you looked at it, which is the same thing I was hearing about the CISSP. And so I went with Boston. I went ahead and I, went through those practice questions. I studied, I drilled. And I remember the first practice exam I took with them, I'm pretty sure my score was like 53 or 54% by the end of that. And after studying 4 weeks diligently, going through the study guide and researching, it was crushing to see that score and know that I didn't even pass on my first attempt with the practice exam. But the cool thing with Boston is that when you pay for the bundle, you can only pay for a bundle. You get like 8 practice exams or something like that. When you pay for the bundle, you can go through these practice exams. You can take them as many times as you want. So I took that first practice exam. I took the areas that I was the most weak in. So it basically, my threshold was, if I'm not scoring an 85% or higher on a particular domain, remember there's 8 domains. If I'm not pulling an 85% or higher on one of those domains, I'm going to go ahead and go through the chapters in the book. And I have 2 books. So I would go through those chapters, go through the topics that are being mentioned, and I would relearn it. I would pull out a new notebook, write down new notes as if I had never read those pages before, and try to look at it differently. Try to dig deeper. Try to get myself to understand the concepts, because the CISSP is all about understanding the concepts. It's not about making sure you understand what an IDS is versus an IPS or something like that. Intrusion detection versus intrusion prevention. It's not about that. It's about you understanding why you would choose an IDS versus an IPS and how it applies to a particular scenario, because those are the types of questions that you're going to be getting when you take your exam. So understanding these concepts are very, very important. And that's what I wanted to make sure that I did when I was preparing for my exam and when I was studying. So I did that. After I got my first practice exam score of 50 something and said this isn't going to work, I went ahead and touched back into the books and try to get more notes, and I retook another exam, another one, not the same one, because I didn't want to make sure that I didn't want to remember those questions. I didn't take the same one because I didn't want to remember those questions. I wanted to take another exam batch or another exam set, practice exam, so that I got some new questions and got to see some other areas that I was weak in. And I think my score was higher. I think I got like a 70. So not quite there yet at 85%, but a little bit better. I knew I still needed to work. And I just continued that process until I took all 8 practice exams. And I was getting a little bit higher as I was going along through the practice questions. And once I got to exam 8, practice exam 8, I went back to exam 1 and continued and rinse and repeat for another 2 weeks. And by that time, I was already scoring an average of like 80 to 85. I think on some of my practice exams, I was scoring closer to 90. And so I went ahead and booked my exam, my real exam for the CISSP. And I booked it for the morning. The night before, I didn't do any studying. I actually think I didn't touch the book that entire day. I just went ahead and pretended like nothing was going on. I just wanted to relax, get a good night's sleep, hang out, just watch some shows, because I hadn't been doing that for 6 weeks already. And I scheduled it for about 9:30 in the morning, the following morning on a Saturday morning. So went to bed, got a good night's sleep, woke up around 7, went to a Starbucks, and I whipped out my notes and I went ahead and focused on the areas that I knew I was still not that comfortable in. And just kind of did a refresh, like digging deep into it, reviewing the notes, doing some last minute Google searching, trying to recall anything, any mnemonics or anything like that that I needed to make sure I remembered, that I can write down on my whiteboard when I sit down for my exam. And that certainly helped. So just kind of having the tools fresh in my mind with a good cup of coffee and some breakfast or something like that was totally helpful. And so when I took my exam, let me tell you, I literally took the entire 3 hours and I had all 150 questions thrown at me and I was sweating. My first 20 questions, I know I was shaking, and I'm pretty sure I sweat through the entire exam, it's disgusting, but it's the truth. I don't take exams that well, but lo and behold, I passed it on the first attempt, and it was totally worth the effort. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the benefits of it and some of the things that I noticed after I got the CISSP. So when I passed my CISSP, I called my friend up at work and I said, dude, I passed it. Now, this guy, he kind of knew that I was doing this. He was inviting me to lunches and I kept turning him down because I was trying to study. And he was a big supporter of that. He wanted to see me succeed, which is great. Surround yourself around people that want to see you succeed. I called him up that morning and I said, hey, I passed it. I can't believe it. I'm pretty sure I was crying. I don't even know. And he was like, that's awesome. Let's celebrate. So, later in that week, we got together and got a cup of coffee, bought me some coffee, and we had some good conversations about the exam. And he had already passed the word around to everybody in the office, which is absolutely insane. And one thing I kept hearing was all these people say, I attempted the CISSP, I attended this workshop, and I didn't pass. And so they were asking me about my study tactics and what did I do, what was my regimen and my process, and I just kind of explained it to them. And one thing I kept hearing was, that's so insane, you were so disciplined. I couldn't do that, or that would be so difficult for me. And, you know, I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. Like people say they want to do these things, but they don't want to discipline themselves. And I just want to say it's worth it. Like if you're willing to go and discipline yourself and go through the process, kind of like what I did for the CISSP, you can accomplish anything. And the CISSP, I mean, like I said, it has earned me high salaries. It has earned me endless opportunities. And it's something that I continue to see people requesting for job opportunities, or at least asking me if I know anybody that's qualified for the position. And unfortunately, most of the time I don't, because they're already taking jobs that they like and that they enjoy. So if you're looking for a lot of opportunities, especially right now within all the demand that we're hearing about for cybersecurity professionals, if you have the experience requirements and you're looking to take that CISSP, let me just encourage you, it's going to be well worth it. And if you follow the study tactics that I put into practice when I was pursuing my CISSP, I guarantee you, it's going to work for you. You're going to pass it and you're going to see endless opportunities just like I do. It's just going to be the best thing you've ever done in your career. Honestly, it's probably one of the best things that I've ever done. And I'm actually looking at possibly getting one of those add-on CISSP certification things like the ISSMP or something like that. Just because I kind of missed that process and that discipline. That was something that was really, really, it was tough, but it was a good challenge. And I think it would be a good challenge for you too. So if I can encourage you to do anything right now, go ahead and pursue that CISSP if you're qualified for it and you're considering it. All right, everybody, that about wraps up this video. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found that me sharing my journey on pursuing the CISSP might have added some tips and tricks, maybe some tactics you can take away and apply to your study process. If you're actually pursuing the CISSP certification, drop a comment down in the section below. Let me know what's working for you, what's not working for you. Maybe there's something I can help you with, and if you ask a question, I'm always looking in the comments to answer and provide feedback in any way I can. So I love hearing from you. Be sure to reach out and let me know. If you're not pursuing the CISSP certification, but you are looking around for cybersecurity certs that might be more applicable to what you're interested in, be sure to leave a question. Ask me down in the section below, and I will be sure to respond and provide you with the best 2 cents I have on all the cybersecurity certifications out there or what might be most applicable to you. All right, until next time, see ya.